Sir.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another AMA session, Ask Me Anything session, put on by Equilibrium. Just to let you know, we'll get started here in about 30 seconds or so. Let everybody have a chance to click the link, get their questions ready. Let our guest, Luke, have a sip of coffee along with myself, and we'll go ahead and get started.
Cheers to that.
Cheers. All right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Again, welcome to another AMA session here hosted by the team at Equilibrium, the creators of EOS DT. If you've never participated in one of these sessions we've had in the past, I'll go through the format, how we do things, why we do them as well. But for those of you who may be new, to tell you a little bit more about us at Equilibrium, we are a decentralized framework for generating asset-backed stablecoins and building next-generation decentralized finance, or DeFi, applications. And in efforts of what we do, along with helping to grow the greater DeFi and EOS communities, we decided to start hosting these AMA sessions with some of our friends, family, and the greater community to bring insights as to what's happening and bring us all together. So these sessions we do on a bi-weekly basis. And you can always tune in and get a chance to ask your questions live to our guests, which brings me to our format. So an AMA, Ask Me Anything session, allows you, the community, to ask our guest, today Luke, anything you have on your mind. And as the questions come in, we'll try to answer them in real time if they're relevant to the conversation. If not, we'll hold them to the end and get to them as we're able to. Also, since this is an AMA, this is for the community, and we want to have fun, the winner, so what we do at the end, we hold a little contest. Our guest, Luke, today will select the best question of the day, and the best question will get a little prize, 100 EOS DT, which we will distribute, and then, or you can feel free to donate to charity as well. And so if you have your questions, please drop them in the Telegram chat, the Equilibrium Telegram chat. Mike from our team is flagging those along with myself in real time. And again, we'll try to get to those as we can. But without further ado, because there's so much to talk about that just happened in the past 7 days in this industry, we have one of the top experts in the decentralized finance space, or again, DeFi. Everybody, please welcome Luke Stokes from Puerto Rico, live in all of this beautiful sunset. Welcome, Luke.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, this is actually a picture I took in Costa Rica a while back, and I loved it so much it kind of became my background. But yeah, I'm coming from Puerto Rico. Happy to be here. Been super excited about the whole space for quite some time. I had a shopping cart company called FoxyCart, where we did the process of buying stuff online. It was a platform as a service. And so I'm very familiar with the traditional payment rail systems, and very frustrated by them as well. In 2013, we started trying to get people onboarded to accept Bitcoin through BitPay integration. I think there's still a Bitcoin wiki entry for FoxyCart. And ever since then, just realizing how much we need to make this whole space easier for everyone to use, more practical, more real. And so I'm very excited to see stablecoins and many other DeFi projects coming out there and becoming mature. It's very exciting.
Awesome. And Luke, give us a little background on yourself. I mean, how did you get into this space in detail? Where are you at today? What are you working on? That's the first Ask You question. So I'm asking you, tell us a little bit about your background, how you got here, and what's getting you excited about the space.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. I've been in the space for more than 7 years now. Actually, my first purchase of Bitcoin was in January 2013. I spent $50 and I got 2.5 Bitcoin. So it wasn't a bad investment. And that was after just, deep dive into this fake internet money that I had seen in, 2011, 2012 and kind of just ignored. And then through that process, like I said, running an e-commerce company, getting familiar with the payment system, and then really the deep dive into kind of like the whole banking system, fiat currency, how the whole world works essentially, and realizing we could do better. Like we need a better system for this. I think centralization causes corruption, and the ability to decentralize tools, such important tools as the very nature of value itself. The reason we leave our wife and kids and go off to work is to get these little pieces of paper, right? Super important that we understand what controls them. And so in that process, just been in the Bitcoin space for a while, I got a little frustrated with the block size debate and not seeing resolution on chain for that. And so I got very excited when Steem came along. I had a couple different friends who told me about Steem in 2016. And I got involved there, and I like the idea of on-chain governance mechanisms with DPoS, where they could actually decide as a community without creating these kind of Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum Classic type moments. And then through that, eventually got asked to be a block producer there. They call them witnesses, and then eventually got recruited as part of the EOS community to be a block producer there. And I worked with EOS DAC. Almost ended up working with EOS New York. I love those guys there, but I just got super passionate about DACs and DAOs. And so EOS DAC has been, since day one, as the initial block producer of the chain, been working to build DAC and DAO technology so that anyone can have a decentralized, autonomous community that they control and that they work together as a community, a group of people with a shared goal. They have transparency on chain, all that good stuff. And then through that process, kind of eventually realized like all this stuff is too hard to use. So in the past year or so, I've been working with something called FIA, the Foundation for Interwallet Operability. I'm the managing director for their foundation. We are going mainnet live next month, and it's an EOS.io based chain that is really just a usability layer across every blockchain, across every chain on a wallet layer to make everything easy, so easy anybody can do it. So like Luke Stokes, you can do requests for send, metadata, all that cool stuff. So love to talk about that more as well.
Yeah. So let's start there before we get into what just happened in the past 7 days. So Theo is an exciting project. I've monitored it for some time as well, and you and I have spoke a little bit before the cast about it, but you're about to come onto mainnet. And I think what's lacking a little bit in this space is people see an exciting project and don't know the journey that it took to get there. When people build companies, it's kind of understood, that journey. When people build the traditional mobile web apps, again. But when it comes to this decentralized space and the idea of going and bringing something live to what's called the mainnet, the curtains are rarely pulled back and shown as to what that process is like. So could you tell us a little bit about some of the lessons learned, the journey, and probably some of the pains that you guys had to go through leading up to this launch, just for those in the community, right? To help them understand.
For sure. And I should probably clarify too, and this is important, we're actually unfortunately not going to be on EOS mainnet. There's an important reason why. And that was when they first, over a year ago, asked me as a consultant. I was like, wait, you're going to launch your own EOS.io chain? Why? And I was kind of like, EOS mainnet's got everything you need. Why would you do that, right? Yep. And it's probably one of the only examples I've seen in the space, maybe there's a couple others, that has a real legitimate reason for that. It's heavily modified. They've restructured the entire thing. There's no staking. It's a fee-based system. The level of performance and throughput that they need to be able to do what they want. It's also not a smart contract platform. The core system contracts are kind of locked in by the block producers. So it is a separate chain. And there are some who are not necessarily a fan of DPoS or EOS.io. And so from our perspective, it's like, don't worry so much that it's on a blockchain even. Just know that it's going to make your wallet amazing to use. So that's been one of the challenges. It's just the crypto tribalism. A lot of people are like, oh, you're an EOS project. Why are you on EOS? We heard that EOS has governance problems, and it's just kind of like, they don't fully, they haven't been in the trenches with like, really understanding. They just, they see media that's sponsored by, outlets that are sponsored by Ethereum, backers and things like that. There's all these different communities in the space with their own perspective. And I'm not a maximalist in any way. I love Ethereum. I love Bitcoin. I love all the different projects in the space that increase human well-being and give us, global nonviolent consensus. I'm all about it. But I'd say one of the growing pains has just been when you heavily modify something as complex and as amazing as EOS.io, there are challenges. So we've run into security challenges as we're engaging some of the best people in the space. They're kind of like, wait, you did what to the resource model? Like, you did what to the authorizations? And so at first there's this hesitation, like, you guys really know what you're doing? Should you have done that? And then we explain to them all. They're like, oh wow, we get it. But it's it's just a larger attack surface when you make significant changes. And so that's what we're working through, leading right up to mainnet launch, to making sure this is completely solid and ready to go. And we got some of the best people that were like employee number 2 at BitShares, and they've followed this all the way through Steem and all the way through EOS. So we got some amazing people will help working with us. Crypto Lines, Block Trades, Gan Off the Grade, like some fun people that I've worked with for years as a block producer. So I'm encouraged about it, but it's certainly challenging.
I love it. And if you had to give maybe 1 or 2 pieces of advice for someone in the community who's building their first, application or looking to build something like Theo, what are 2 of those things that you would want them to take away from your lessons learned? And we don't need to get into, full things that are leading up to mainnet, but just, guiding principles or lessons learned, it's still a very difficult space to build in.
Yes.
Let's be honest, right? It's still the early days of what you and I probably dealt with in, web and mobile. The difference is things happen about 100 times faster than they did back then. So, yeah, maybe one or two pieces of advice you could leave the community with on building.
I would probably even mix it a little bit with what we've experienced with EOS DAC, doing a similar thing, launching the DAC factory, working on DAC software. It's the idea that this space, like you said, is moving very, very quickly. And sometimes your underlying fundamental building blocks are changing out from underneath you. The API versions change. Certain calls that used to work don't anymore. The nodes you're relying on go dark, and so just being able to roll with the punches, essentially. It's not like any other development experience. I built my first websites in 96, and I've been a programmer for a long time. It's not like any other environment I've been in. And so just being prepared for that. And the second thing I'd add is maybe really reach out to who you consider the experts in the space, really bring in, and build relationships with those people and bring in those people to help you and look over your code. That's something I did early on as a consultant with Dapix, the venture-backed company that's building the first version of the PO protocol. Just brought in all my friends and said, hey guys, take a look at this. And their expertise has been invaluable. And I would just encourage people to just build those relationships to the point where they want to help support you. And it's not a matter of, tit for tat. It's just like, oh man, what you're doing is awesome. Yeah, I totally want to come help. And that's just been so humbling and amazing to see.
And, on that note, we had a lot of things just happen in the DeFi particular space in the past 7 days, really in the past 48 hours, as you and I spoke about beforehand. But I want to hit on something real quick. So you mentioned everyone coming together. We did have something unfortunate or fortunate happen, a few days ago. There was the hack that happened. But what was different, and I want to mention this leading up to this question, is what was different is in the past, if something was hacked, things happen. No problem. It's yours to deal with. In this case, with what you're mentioning, the community really rallied together and within a matter of minutes to hours had suggested things, had spoken about it, had talked about it, and solved-ish or realized or put depth to it what the problem was. So I couldn't agree more with you. Is bring the community together. That's what we're all here to do as well. But last 7 days, what the hell happened? Voice launch, Tron and Steem. I want to talk about that. We've got tons of other things. Give me a summary of what you think just happened for the entire world in the past 7 days.
It's certainly been amazing. So, as we've all been since June 1, I was there at the event, B1, G1, the whole deal in DC, getting super excited about voice launch. And so we've all been waiting for this. We got the announcement January or February 14th, Valentine's Day. We're going to do this. It's going to be amazing. And then kind of out of nowhere, there's this, oh, by the way, the Tron Foundation, Justin's son, just bought Steem Incorporated. And we're like, what? And we're like the block producers. And we're like furiously typing to our friends that work at Steem. And we're like, what's going on? And they're like, well, we'll talk about it when we can. And it's just the drama. Oh my gosh. I mean, you want to talk about some of the most passionate community members in the entire blockchain space, in my opinion, for the last, 4 years, almost 4 years now, are the Steem blockchain members. I mean, they blog, they do videos, they do art, they do music, they do so many incredible things. And these are not necessarily blockchain people. Some of them are just like, look, you're messing with my blog, man. My blog that actually gives me coffee money and whatever. So it was a massive amount of drama, and we all kind of scrambled within the community. Some were immediately talking about, how do we fork out their stake? How do we lock their tokens? How do we do this, that, and the other? And the other people like, man, the block producers, you need to step up and protect our chain. And others, Poloniex puts out a post that's like, oh yeah, totally. The Steem swap to the new Tron Steem token, we're totally going to support it. And we're like, what the heck swap are they talking about? They were talking to the block producers. And just the whole education around, they bought a centralized company that has a centralized website, steemit.com, that is only one of many ways to look at the Steem blockchain. You got Steem Peak, you got Busy.org, you've got eSteem, you got all these amazing other products, right? And so just educating even that community what they bought. And so then, he's explaining Steem is not Steemit, right? And really what's so beautiful, and this is important for the EOS community and all the DPoS communities, this is potentially a moment to test if a DPoS blockchain is a blockchain. How resilient is it? How fault tolerant is it? If it gets attacked or taken over in a hostile way, how does the community respond? What can the block producers do to still enforce consensus according to the majority stakeholders? If 20% of the stake wants to go a different direction that might harm the network, how do we respond, right? And at the same time, there's the whole other conversation going, this might be the best freaking thing that's ever happened to Steem, because we have not been super excited about the leadership at Steem in the past. And that's been, I won't go there, but I'll just say a certain person still has blocked me on Twitter and I do not know why. So these kind of things, it's like, we're excited, but we're also careful. And so that's just been, a ton of my time and a ton of the block producers' time, lots and lots and lots of conversations. And we're talking to the community. I'm really excited that the Steem employees started posting yesterday their views. And in a way that was a risk. They may lose their jobs. Who knows? We don't know. It's all kind of this amazing drama, right? So that's super exciting. We're very, very excited about that as far as what can that mean for the DeFi space. It could be this amazing moment where two communities, the Tron community and the Steem community, actually come together. And I tweeted something about that. I tried to change the narrative going, go sign up on Steem it. Justin did. And now the Tron army is like, yeah, let's all go to Steem it, kind of preempting some of the other directions it could go. But who knows? We'll find out. It's still early days. Is this hostile? Is this a beautiful partnership? We don't know. So it relates perfectly to the voice thing. Some people think it was just a marketing ploy to be like, well, EOS has voice. Well, guess what? Tron now has Steem. Really, he has Steem it. He doesn't have Steem. And if he wants to try to move Steem it to the Tron blockchain without the Steem community, he may find out there's no one there, right? So it's going to be super interesting to find out. And then also, you touched on the craziness with all the DeFi stuff. I was just reading through even this morning some latest updates. Was going through the moment by moment, play by play, like the DAPX team was at ETH Denver, as these things were happening, and it was kind of like 3 a.m. we did this, 8 a.m. we did this, and it was just like super amazing that within 12 hours, the team was on it. They literally left a party, there at the conference to go and deal with this. And I love that about this space. Just a quick story. 2014, I think it was, when the Bitcoin blockchain forked. I was up till 2 a.m. in IRC watching it happen in real time. And I turned to my wife. I don't know why she was still up at the time. I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. I just watched a whole bunch of people all over the world come together, shut down their exchanges, shut down their payment gateways, shut down their block explorers, like everything, so they could fix this issue. People from all over the world acted in their own self-interest to protect the entire network, which had an aligned interests of themselves. And when I saw that, I was like, blockchain is going to take over the world. That's amazing. And I feel like we're in those kind of similar moments where we're having these historical things happen. We're like, how's blockchain going to handle it? And we'll find out.
Well, and so on the voice note, we spoke a little bit about the show. Both of us have been invited, or I have, and I know you're
I'm in Puerto Rico, so I'm hoping for that invite. U.S. territories apparently are lower on the list, but
it's apparently non-transferable, or else I would have given you a late Valentine's Day gift and let you go with it. But nonetheless, it did launch. It launched on Valentine's Day in a limited beta format, but there was a lot of, we'll say, speculation and a little bit of controversy around voice in itself. Some from its challenge to the social media world. Let's bypass that. But from a technical perspective, right, Block One and how they chose to build it, or how they chose not to build it, really got the community a little confused. And I think you brought this up with 5.0, but would love to understand your thoughts as to why maybe they went the direction they did for voice. And what I mean by they is Block One for those listening. So, yeah, your thoughts on what's happened with voice in the past couple days.
I think it's a great conversation, because there was, I think, and there has been in day one, I think, an expectation from EOS mainnet token holders that they bought something that Block One is then going to make valuable, right? And clearly they can't do that. I mean, they got a $24 million fine for even the suggestion that their ERC20 was a security, right? So there's a limit to what they can participate in directly from a legal perspective. And they have very expensive lawyers and obviously a lot of value to protect, billions of dollars to protect. So their decision to launch on a different chain than mainnet obviously was really concerning to people. They say, wait a minute, I thought you were going to make EOS mainnet valuable and my token therefore valuable. And this has been an ongoing discussion with the community that has been contentious, to say the least, right? And it's funny because it almost mirrors what I've experienced for years with the Steem Incorporated and the Steem blockchain. These are separate entities. There's expectations of support. There's expectations of promises made or promises not made. And so I think from my perspective, I was a little frustrated as well. I'm like, you're kind of demonstrating some of the pain points we at EOS DAC have felt and many other application developers have felt trying to build on EOS mainnet with the inconsistency and the challenges of code and bugs and things that just don't work the way they're supposed to over the last, year and a half, 2 years. So it would have been nice to see them kind of eat their own dog food a little bit on EOS mainnet. At the same time, when you spend that much money for a domain name, you're not going to come out of the box and fail, right? So I get why they're on a little more of a controlled beta release, and I appreciate the way they've responded to say, look, this is just a beta. We have intention to integrate with mainnet as far as my understanding of what I read, but this is just getting us started. So that's where I think it's at. Ultimately, only their team knows where it's going to go from here, and I love the excitement, though. The community's super excited about it. There's a lot of talk. There's even talk about Chirp, the links chain going like, yeah, you don't need voice because Chirp is awesome. And I just, I've played around with Chirp just recently, and that's pretty cool as well for those who haven't got on voice yet. So, there's a lot of cool stuff going on.
I love it. So we talked about, bringing the community together with Steem and Neutron. And Block One is trying to do the same with the launch of Voice and others. But I want to talk a little bit about the competitive landscape. So while we've got EOS IO, version 2 out there, we also have the TON network, and we have Polkadot, and we have a few others that are kind of popping up as not necessarily direct competitors per se, but all have their technical advantages. What are you seeing between those three and others as where they're going, what works, what doesn't, and kind of the advantages or disadvantages between them?
It's funny. I was just had a conversation earlier today about Polkadot, a friend of mine who's involved there, and I haven't looked into it as much as I'd like to. And actually, I've got a flight out tonight to New York, and it's my plan is to dive into the technical, details of Polkadot.
We're 12 hours early for the question.
But that said, I'm excited. Again, I've been in this space for a long time, and I can remember, early on when those decisions were made to be like, yeah, you can't do this on Bitcoin, and so Vitalik's like, well, I guess I'll go over here and do Ethereum then, and like just watching this whole space evolve, where people thought they could have programmable money. That was one of those initial promises of Bitcoin, right? And seeing these different enhancements of it. I was again thinking today about some people in the Ethereum space. Again, I've got many friends there, and it's awesome what they're doing in that space. But it's also just, again, not super user-friendly, having to pay gas fees and different things. And imagine if you spend years building something, and then something else comes out that's just so much easier to use. You'd be like, really? Dang it! It's like I don't want to corner people, as like frightened animals when we talk bad about what they've been working on, right? But also at the same time, I have to recognize, like, thank you for your service. Like, you moved the whole system forward. But there's also something better, and guess what? There's probably going to be something better after that, and that's why even when I talk about EOS or Tron or all these other different amazing platforms that are coming up, I'm not even convinced. What if it's not even blockchain? What if it's a directed acyclical graph? What if it's some other type of ledger technology? Nano is, for example, a great technology that very few people talk about. Has no governance issues. It just works, at a very high throughput. But nobody really cares, right? So it's just like there's a very interesting parallels that can be made to what we've seen throughout the technology space, when new technologies come and make old technologies obsolete, and yet we still have a radio, we still have a TV. All of these things I think are still going to be useful for their, for what they do. We still use some low-level protocols in the internet today that are kind of clunky, right? Been around a long time, but they still serve their purpose. So I think a lot of these chains are going to be that low-level protocol, and again, that's why I think Theo and the Foundation for Interwallet Operability is so useful, because it kind of levels the playing field as far as the usability of all these different chains, and so that's why I'm excited about it.
So let's hit on that for a second. Interoperability, the idea of bringing things together or being able to cross chain, if we will buzzword out for a moment. Let's go into that for a second. What does this mean, and what does this mean for not just EOS in general, but the overall, growth of applications? Because while blockchain is great, while the term DeFi is awesome, there are still hurdles we have to get over for mass adoption. And interoperability may solve some of that. It may not. But what does it mean for everything?
That's such an important question. And one of the analogies we talk about often is the internet was around for about 10 years before HTTP came out. And prior to that, it was like, what is this good for? And then you get the World Wide Web, you get web browsers, and people are like, oh, wow, the internet. I could do all kinds of cool things with the internet. And I think, and that's why I'm involved in this project, I think Theo is one of those where it's like, blockchain around for 10 years. People are like, what are these big, crazy public addresses? I've got thing here, like getting rid of public addresses, these big big hashes that are confusing. And instead, what about just Luke @Stokes? That's just so much easier to remember. Any blockchain, any cryptocurrency. And not only that, in all the years that I've worked in cryptocurrency, I think there's only been one time I got something showed up in my wallet that I didn't expect, right? They always start with a request. There's always some process leading up to that transaction. And that's really what FIO does. It's a routing protocol for dealing with value. And that's going to be in your DeFi applications. It's going to be in your NFT tokens, in your game application, anything that touches a blockchain where you want to interact with different people. It's like a key exchange. When I give you my Bitcoin address or my EOS account name or whatever, it's like that used to be a really sacred thing. Like you would actually do key signing parties and things like that to really make sure you got the right public key, right? Super important. And yet we do it with QR codes, completely insecure. We do it with email. Oh, I'll just email you my Bitcoin address. Send me, $10,000. Like, really? So I like that FIO with the request functionality and that FIO data functionality enables that interaction to be very contextual, show up right in your wallet and be like, yeah, that's actually signed by their key. I know who that is. That's exactly what I expect. And they want to have whatever currency they want. They want Nano, fine. They want Steem, fine. They want whatever, fine. If that wallet supports it, it works. And you just say, whoop, and then it goes over to the normal chain signing process in that wallet. So the nice thing about FIO is it's a wallet layer solution. It doesn't actually talk to any of the underlying blockchains at all. They don't even know that FIO was involved. And so that layer, abstraction layer, means that any crypto-enabled project at all, any service or provider can go ahead and implement it and use it. It's open source. APIs are open source. Protocols open source. And our testnet's up and now if you want to start playing with it. So I'm excited because I feel like, this has to exist. This is what we've been waiting for. We've got to make cryptocurrency easy to use because we have all these cool things we want to build, DACs and DAOs and DeFi. And if it's not simple for everyday people, this is just not going to happen.
So DAOs, and then we're going to get to DACs because we've got some really good questions coming in around DACs. But DAOs, what is a DAO? Why does anyone care? Why should anyone be paying attention to DAOs right now? As it's a commonly talked about topic in the community, but aside from a small community, what does it mean?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's probably one of my favorites in terms of like, the DAO is the Decentralized Autonomous Organization. So then, of course, people say, well, what's decentralized? It's on a spectrum. It's different opinions. What does autonomous mean? Well, it could mean many different things. And the way we've kind of talked about it, decentralized, and I say we meaning EOS DAC, who I've been working with for a while, and we're a block producer on EOS, and also a lot of EOS IO chains. Decentralized means no single point of failure. So it's not like one person who gets to control it. Autonomous, isn't like AI per se. It might be in the future, but today, and some disagree on this, but our interpretation is you get a consistent, transparent, reproducible process. So you put in this information, it goes through some functions, and you get this output. And there's no like separate books, separate Enron books over here in the corner that nobody knows about, right? All decisions are transparently done on chain. And that includes governance voting for your custodians or stewards that are on the multi-sig for all the funds for the organization. That includes worker proposals and referendums and just everything that is involved in that group. And I talk about a DAO or a DAC as a group of people with a shared goal. These are a group of people that are like, hey, we want to do something in the world. We don't want to lose our individual sovereign autonomy, but yet we have to recognize we're all better than the sum of our parts. We have to come together and pool our resources, pool our skills, pool our passions to make something happen. And I think a DAO or DAC model is so disruptive and so exciting that it's going to change the world. And I say that as someone who did a post in 2013 that Bitcoin was more disruptive than the internet. And people are like, what the heck is Bitcoin? What are you talking about? And I think of to be true. And the reason I get passionate about DAOs and DACs is that when you look at nonprofit organizations, you look at corporations, you look at even governments, and Liberland, for example, is using EOS DAC technology. They're using stuff we've worked on. This is an opportunity for our whole species to evolve to another layer of consciousness and governance. And what I mean by that is our current systems rely on threats of violence. Our current systems rely on top-down hierarchy control, and our technology for the first time ever has enabled networks to be as efficient as hierarchies. And when I see that, I think, this is inevitable. This is a networked, distributed, voluntary group of people coming together, sharing their resources in a transparent, accountable, reproducible way. And does it have problems? Absolutely. Are humans still involved? For sure. Is there still drama? Absolutely. And so I've also been studying like leadership, for example, and other models to how to get these groups of people to coordinate and collaborate. And how do you defend what you care about? How do you protect your community? All these things. So we're kind of reinventing a lot of governance things that have been talked about for hundreds of years, even back to like the Federalist and Anti-Federalist papers. We're kind of revisiting some of those ideas with new tools. And that's what I look at this as, is new tools for the human species for literally nonviolent consensus, and it's a beautiful thing.
I love it, and that follows right into one of our good questions from our community. So from the community, we got a question. Few have grasped the importance and potential of DAC, so DAC for those that are listening, as you have, Luke. This is specific to you, of course. In your opinion, what are the incredible points about stable coins that you think the general public are not yet grasping?
That's another really good one. Stablecoins, I've always been a big fan of. I've been involved after I found out about Steem, and the Steem blockchain dollar was a form of a stablecoin that didn't, had some mechanisms that were a little bit funky. Then I got into BitShares, learned all about BitUSD, was super excited about that. Got totally wrecked on the Hero token when I got margin called. I was just like learning about these like pseudo Hero token was this interesting one that was based on a formula if we didn't have inflation. Like if they didn't do the whole central banker thing from 1900s on, what would the dollar be worth, right? And all these interesting examples of stablecoins. And then even with BitUSD, when they had the global settlement event that happened, I guess about 6 months or a year ago, that was interesting. I was like, I was 20x covered. How the heck did I get called? And I was like, oh dang, everybody got called. And they were like, yeah, that wasn't supposed to happen. This little line of code that they're like, this is this little check that will just never ever happen. It was total black swan event, right? And so I've been passionate about getting it right. I've seen it not right for a long time. I have been involved in all the criticisms of Tether and all that, whether it's fully backed and all these things. But ultimately, this gets back to what I was saying earlier about usability. People are not excited about, I'll give you a personal example. I paid off my house when Bitcoin was around $800, $900. And that was after it was at $1,200 and we watched it go to $250. My wife and I are like, oh man, we could have paid off the house and then we could have just been buying Bitcoin back up, right? And then after it was at $800, $900, of course, we saw it to go to 20,000. So we're just like, oh, geez, we could have paid off 20 houses, right? Like, that wasn't my whole stash. Yeah, it was like, it wasn't my whole stash, but it was a lot of it, most of it, for sure. And so most people they have no appetite for that level of volatility. And I think stable tokens are a really great way, especially we talk about the unbanked, but they're not being served, especially for the unbanked. Those who, when you're like, oh yeah, 15% dip or dive in a given week, who cares? Or, a fee on something, what's the big deal? But it's like, man, if you're trying to scrape every dollar together, that matters. So I think stable coins are going to be really important. I think we have to make them really usable, again, with like FIO and other things like it. And we have to make them trusted. And so like with the stuff we saw in the last couple of days, when people are building these super financially complex algorithmic, things, we got to be careful. We're literally playing with nuclear weapon technology here. In some ways, it's like this is super advanced stuff that has the potential to change the way the global financial system works. Let's get it right. So I think stable tokens are really, really important for adoption, for people to understand how this can benefit their day-to-day lives in a very simple way, getting rid of credit card fees and other things like that, just simple things to make things cheaper for them. And then I think it's going to be the gateway into a larger understanding of, wait, humans can create their own store of value. You and I could create our own blockchain, our own cryptocurrency, and we could actually create a story of financial value that others believe, well, this is what the central bankers have been doing for hundreds of years. They have this power. Why don't we take it back?
We're exchanging, for those that don't know, Kyle and Luke tokens right now. Mike is sitting in the middle as our a wallet holder and transacting. So thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. But you're absolutely right, and I couldn't agree more. And looking at the stablecoin market, we've got stablecoins that are backed or collateralized by a single type of currency or asset, and then we have others. And Maker just came out with some news about their transition to a multi-collateral with different currencies and different assets. We've got Libra and several other digital currencies and projects coming out that are diversifying. Question is from our community is, what's the difference? Why one versus the other, and how should we be thinking about these as either we're building or we're looking to transact?
That's a great question. Kind of comes down to your risk surface, your appetite for risk. In one case, the entire point of cryptocurrency is that you own the private keys, you own the cryptocurrency. You're not relying on any type of third-party intermediary. There's no third-party kind of risk, and that is one of the core fundamental tenets of blockchain and cryptocurrency. That said, when you go to a situation where you take a real physical US dollar, you put it in a bank account, and they give you a token in exchange for it, and you're trusting that it's going to be backed and collateralized, you're somewhat dipping into the old system a bit. So I respect that and honor that. And I think it's important. I think it's going to be a great stepping stone towards something better. It's more transparent than really the digital currency that we have right now in USD, which they're just, go in there and type in another number and you got trillions of dollars more inflation, right? It's more accountable, in my opinion, when it's back that way, or it can be anyway, when you have good auditors and things of that nature. And then the other stuff I'm a little bit more excited about, which is the kind of, as you were saying, the collateralized backed systems, where you could take something of value, take a basket of something of value, including cryptocurrencies and even gold, silver, whatever, even USD, whatever, however you want to lock it up and however you want to do it. As long as you have confidence that those assets are real and exist, and that's what's beautiful about just crypto-backed collateral, you get a different sense of security in that you really do own something of value, and it's trackable, it's locked up in a smart contract. There's really you have the entire security of the blockchain securing your investment, securing your token, and it's just super easy to transact. So I've had people come to me and say, hey, as a consultant, tell us which stablecoin to use. And I've kind of just said, well, let's hold off and see. It's a pretty volatile environment, a lot of different things happening. And it's one of those that I would hope to see multiple ideas working, and that's again where if we have these layers of usability solutions on top, maybe it may not matter so much which one you're using behind the scenes as long as it works and you've got enough backing for it. So it's one of those things that's going to be one of those, get someone who knows what they're talking about and ask them, hey, I'm thinking of using this token. What do you think? And do the research yourself. And get into the communities, just like any project in the space. Get in the communities, read the white papers, get engaged and involved, understand is this something you can trust. And frankly, some of these things won't be around in the future. There's a lot of these teams are not well funded. Some of them had ICO money that's now gone. I mean, many, many different stories. So it's going to be really interesting to see which ones of these are robust and resilient as time goes on.
And furthermore, let's talk a little bit about regulation and legal issues. What we can. There's a lot of movement. 2020 has brought a lot of things in fast forward mode. I would say we're not even 2 full months in, and it feels like more has happened in these 2 months than in almost all of 2019, if not the last half of it. But as regulation and legal and now taxes are all being talked about. Data Junkie has an awesome question, which is, what are the biggest legal challenges associated with an EOS-backed stablecoin, and how should people think about overcoming these or preparing for them?
That is a good question. Unfortunately, I'm not the qualified person to answer it. I'm not a lawyer.
You're not a lawyer. It's okay.
But I will say, I'll just give some thoughts from things I've learned. And myself included, I've thought, if I just sufficiently decentralize it, everything will be fine. And I've heard some very smart lawyers tell me that's a pipe dream. That's not true. You do have to follow the law. For example, even with DACs and DAOs, if you take your stablecoin, put it behind a DAC and say, it's fully decentralized, there's nobody you can, even if it's like a dark DAC where everyone's anonymous, they're going to call it an association. They're going to call it a partnership. They're going to call it, whatever they want to call it, and they're going to hold you accountable. There's going to be joint and several liability. There's going to be other things of that nature. And so it's, again, one of those things where your money well spent into these projects, from my perspective, are on amazing developers who really understand security and know what the heck they're doing, so you're not going to get hacked. And that's not just your actual code, but that's your entire infrastructure. FoxyCart was PCI level 1 compliant for 10 years. And knock on whatever piece of wood I have, we never got hacked. I'm very proud of that. We wrote good code, but we also did PCI compliance, the payment card industry compliance. We did it right. We did it well. So something like that, follow some OWASP guidelines, things like that if you're a developer, to do it right. And then as far as that, the next thing would be, legal advice that you trust, people that really have your back. They're not going to just tell you something because it's going to create more revenue for them and more hours to bill, but they're really going to give you direction on what is the best plan of action. And it's rare to find lawyers that can do that. Generally, they'll be like, well, you could do this, or you could do that, and we'll tell you why all of them are going to put you in jail, and instead of saying, here's all the options, and we've done all the research, and we think this is the best plan of action. You can find that, you're in a good spot.
Awesome. And then we've got another question here from Lazy Coast. What sets your service apart from your competitors? So I think they may be referring to FIVO. So let's talk a little bit about how you guys are set differently from the rest of the competitive landscape.
Yeah, actually, it's a good warm-up question for the panel I'll be on tomorrow at NFT NYC. I'll be on a panel there. Yeah, with the Handshake guys, ENS guys. OpenSea is going to be there. It's going to be great. And one of the ways I like to think about it is a lot of these are focusing on decentralized DNS, which is so amazing and so awesome and absolutely needs to happen. I think it's a beautiful use case for the technology. but it's inherently a public activity. You have to be able to figure out what that IP address is when you use DNS. And DNS, for those who don't know, is domain name, resolution services. So it's like you go and put in google.com and your browser has to figure out an actual IP address to an actual server connected to the internet to serve up that web page. And so that's fantastic. But when we talk about wallet naming, we feel like that's a more inherently private interaction. There's no reason for someone to be able to know my full balances. Now, we don't have this yet at mainnet launch. It's one of our first highest priorities as far as whitelisting and friend listing. But once that feature is in place, there's going to be the ability to only interact with a whitelisted person that you know. And therefore, you have a shared key, and all of those interactions are fully encrypted. And so that, to me, is a really important difference, that we're going to focus on privacy. We're not going to be like a privacy chain like Monero or something like that, but we are focused on not decreasing your privacy in any way. So another example, a deterministic wallet, is constantly, every time you send a transaction, it's going to generate a new address, right? That's how these work. And that gives you a little sense of privacy. And in some of the solutions, having to pay gas fees, for example, and the manual process of having to reset that mapping all the time would be very cumbersome. And with FIO protocol, we have, when you get this address, pay a few bucks a year for this name, the FIO name on your FIO address, you get a bundled transaction amount with that address that you've kind of prepaid for. So the wallet integration can automatically be doing those, mappings for you behind the scenes. And those interactions, all the metadata, the chain they use, the amount, that metadata is encrypted. Even at mainnet launch, that's encrypted peer-to-peer between the two people. So just fundamentally, it's just an approach of we're trying to make wallet naming as private as possible, whereas the DNS decentralized is just not a focus we have. Now, the nice thing is we can go that route if we need to. We can get like a FIO as a TLD, for example, on the existing addresses, but that's not our focus. We want to focus on routing, and it's not even just naming, it's the full value. It's everything leading up to a transaction. So that includes the metadata and the FIO request features.
So a great follow-up to that question is another question we had, and I think a lot of others are having the same question is, many users, including the individual that asked, said they expect faster, more transparent, and easier ways to replace cash with cryptocurrencies or digital currencies. But as time has gone on, speed is still a limiting factor, right? And there's still a number of constraints, and EOS itself has some challenges around accessibility. Are we headed in the right direction? And the best part about this question is, how do I convince, not me, our community, how do I convince my friend of the reason why to use an EOS DAP through all these difficulties? And let's look at DApps in general, right? How do you convince someone to start using a DAP, decentralized application, for those listening, with some of these challenges, right? We're talking about replacing fiat, so traditional paper or traditional money, with digital currencies, stable or not. How do you convince somebody?
It's a great question again. Yeah, you guys, man, your audience questions are fantastic. I love it. It's my thought on that. And again, I've been trying for a long time. Like I said, in 2013, I was blogging. I was all of our email, we had thousands of stores on FoxyCart, trying to get them to just click a button, go sign up with BitPay, click a button, put your number in here. And look, you get this awesome ability to accept cryptocurrency on your checkout. And people are like, crypto what? And they don't get it. And they're like, why would I add a reason for someone to abandon their cart as they go research Bitcoin, right? Like, I'm not going to do that. And it was just too confusing, wallet addresses, everything like that. And so I kind of decided a while back, I'm just not going to try as far as selling people on it. My answer has generally been, just wait. That's cool. Now, it's very speculative. Yeah, very volatile. Yeah, you're right. Really hard to use, kind of difficult. Yeah, this is for early adopters, bleeding edge stuff. Just wait. If that's not you, that's fine. And it's, again, watching the doubling of adoption in the internet technologies and watching how, and I had a friend who talked about this the other day. I thought it was really brilliant. He was saying that right up to the 2000 bubble was when we had 4% adoption. I don't know exactly where he got his data from, but it was a really interesting number. And he was saying that he's been tracking the Bitcoin adoption rate for the last 10 years. He actually read the white paper when it came out. This is a crypto kid I'm talking about. He's got a documentary that MSNBC did like a while back. And he's like, I've been tracking this number, this data. And from his perspective, we just hit 1%. And 2020 is going to be 2%. And he says 2021 is going to be 4%. It's this doubling effect. And you listen to the people like there's a lot of people that really understand exponential growth. I should say there's not a lot of people. There's a few people that really understand it. Most people don't. But those who do are incredibly smart, and they hit their projections and their predictions. And so the idea being, in the next couple of years, if we have that same .com moment where all of a sudden everyone's like, whoa, the internet, it's going to be amazing. It's no longer, what is internet? I think these things are going to handle themselves because the money is going to flow in at such an intense level. Projects like FIO and others to make the usability easier are going to happen. Advancements in second layer and third layer solutions. Like, a lot of people don't realize, and I understand this because I understood the credit card systems. When you swipe your credit card, it doesn't actually charge right then. They do a batch, and those get settled that night, in big, gigantic batches. And so, there's even expectations on the current systems that even the legacy systems don't have, right? So I think there are certain aspects of that. For example, FIO would allow for refunds pretty easy. You know exactly who sent you that, which can be a little bit difficult in other situations. Like, if it was sent from an exchange, you can't, how do you send it back, right? So there's certain refund features and other subscription features and other things that we hope to add to this protocol down the road. And again, it's an open protocol, so the whole community that's in the crypto space is going to be, submitting improvement proposals and all this kind of stuff. So I think it's coming. I think it's one of those things that we could spend just as much energy trying to convince people instead on building stuff, and I think we're going to see a better return. So it's a little bit of a reverse sale. It's like, well, I did well with crypto, and you can too if you want. Go ahead and buy some to get used to it. But hey, it's confusing, it's complicated. My kids play Steem Monsters. I got them playing EOS Nights. We were playing, but if it's too difficult, then they won't stick with it, and that's fine. They like it, they don't like it. It's like, just wait till it's easier, and then it'll be awesome. And just really patience. A lot of the people in this industry, I say, are very impatient. Actually, we are moving very, very fast, and almost too fast sometimes.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And to further that around to dApps, so we already talked about voice and the response, thus far, and I think we're going to see more happen and more excitement or not, maybe some more criticism in the coming weeks. But do you think that voice will be one of the hottest or not dApps on EOS going forward?
It's interesting. It's one that I've thought about for some time. And actually, even as I became a block producer on EOS, I got a lot of criticism in the Steem community saying, why are you abandoning that? So, you're a Steem block producer. Why are you going to EOS? And I was like, well, I'm just about increasing human well-being. So I want all these things to win and to be better than what we're currently doing, right? And so obviously I have a bias in terms of, I've seen social media work in a blockchain space with Steem. I think it's been underappreciated by a lot of people. I'm really excited to see this new it's all in the media now with the Tron acquisition of the Steem company. But as far as voice goes, I think it has a lot of potential, but I've always been very cautious for any large company with a lot of funding that thinks they can come in and just create community. And I'll give some examples. Google Plus failed. Mm-hmm. You could go down the list. There's a lot of very powerful, we're going to socialize. Weren't able, for whatever reason, to capture that zeitgeist to get people really excited about it. Now, that said, people getting deplatformed on Twitter, people getting censored on YouTube and Facebook and stuff. I think the market is ripe for disruption, definitely, and I think there's a potential there. But they're already seeing some criticisms as far as their choice for KYC. Some other, like you said, whether or not they're using mainnet or not. Some of the core people are concerned about that. But ultimately, Dan Larimer's brilliant. He's a super smart guy, and again, I think underappreciated for what he's developed in the space with BitShares and Steem and EOS. I think if they are going to run into challenges, and I think he's going to overcome them. And I think they've got a solid team with some, they've got a lot of money to hire some really great people as well. So I'm very optimistic. I think it has the potential because of their backing, their financial backing, their commitment to it. Obviously buying the domain for the amount they did, they're clearly all in on this. That I think it could potentially just be the right moment, the right time to provide something. But we'll see. I would love to be able to play with it. I don't have my invite yet, and I'm a little chomping at the bit as well. So I'm waiting to see so I can really plug in and mess with it. But from what I've seen of the reviews so far, people are pleasantly surprised. Yeah, there are criticisms, there are concerns. And there also is the concern that, will this cannibalize, for example, from other dApps on EOS? I'm good friends with SenseChat and Ben and Crystal and them. How is this going to impact them? I had some fun conversations with them about that and other similar apps. A lot of wallets want to have chat features in them and things of that nature. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the ecosystem goes. I think we'll probably again see kind of mirrors of what we saw in the Steem community, where steemit.com was kind of the main interface, and these other amazing interfaces were like, you're kind of cannibalizing our road to profitability by just promoting your one thing. Will Voice do that as well for other social apps on EOS? Time will tell. I'm not sure.
Well, and we've gone from Steemit to now Voice being one of the biggest launches, I would argue, in terms of dApps and announcements this year. And we're only a few months away from potentially seeing Libra start to roll out. And there's conversations about Libra being one of the largest decentralized applications because of all of Facebook's reach. What do you think that effect will have? I mean, we've seen this limited effect of Voice. Again, it's only been a few days, let's be honest. But what it can be, but then also how does that compare to what Libra may be? And also, will it have similar effects? Will Libra launch and we'll all be like, eh. Right? Or we'll be like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. No, it's another great
speculation, of course. We're a few months out, so it's okay.
So a lot of people, for example, you can actually pay for things right now within Facebook. How many people use it, right? A lot of people talk about the merger of social media and commerce is this big, amazing thing.
Facebook Marketplace has been around for 4+ years.
Yeah, I remember when they started hyping it. When you're in a chat and you can even mention something money related, they're like, "Hey, you want to send the money through Facebook? You can do it right now through Messenger." And it's kind of like, "Oh, chill, it's okay." You know everything about me already. I don't think I want you to know my bank account number too. So it's just, but it's one of those things where it's the Libra thing. I think is super fascinating, and I actually read through all the technical documents. I mean, I spent hours reading through. I'm like, this is actually freaking cool. They clearly have been working on this for a long time. And as much criticism as I got about being centralized, and EOS, take note, we got 21. They were trying to go for 100. So It's like they might even be more decentralized. Now, again, these are pay-to-play situations, not open voting and all that. But still, I thought it was interesting. We kind of cool our judgments a little bit when we're talking about decentralization for what they were trying to do. So it was interesting in that I think it's the bigger threat to governments. And I actually kind of like that Libra is the one through the door first. They're taking the shots, and the government's like, whoa, you're going to make your own currency? I don't think so. This is what we go to war for, people, and they, they're going to protect the petrodollar. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's going to be very interesting to see the response. And I've heard some people say that, it's just dead in the water. Never going to happen. Government's going to shut it down. But I think it is kind of brilliant. Their play that they played right away early on was like, well, it's open now. So China might do it if you don't do it. And now it creates this technological arms race that I really think ultimately is going to win out into hopefully more freedom and more ability to let everybody voluntarily choose what they want to use. So it's possible it could be like a meh, or it could actually change some things. When you get 1 billion people on the same financial system, especially people that don't have banking, might be in countries that are, blocked for whatever reason from participating on the world stage of commerce and all that. It's potentially exciting. And so a lot of people were bashing on it early on and as far as Libra went. And I've remained openly optimistic in that I think it could be used as a great tool, and it could also push people to the real thing. So I remember being on AOL. I actually worked for Keyword Surf for a while, building Rain Man pages in AOL. I remember CompuServe. I remember these early things, it's the late 90s. And eventually it was like, you're in this little, sandbox, and then you open up the World Wide Web, and like, oh my goodness, there's this whole other thing out there on the internet. And so I have a hunch that some of these more centrally controlled or private cryptocurrency tokens, or really digital currencies, I wouldn't even go so far as to necessarily call all of them cryptocurrencies, might just open the door of possibility and imagination to, again, people owning and controlling their own store of value that they as a community create themselves via DAC or other mechanisms.
That's a good point. I mean, there's also the argument to make that once the announcement happened, it sparked all the developments and the emergence that we've seen over the past 6 months. I mean, go back to the beginning of 2019, kind of coming out of the doom and gloom of 2018 and the markets, and then a little bit of talk of maybe what would or wouldn't happen, and enterprises kind of dipping their toes, and then all of a sudden, Libra is like, boom! We're here, and like you said, everything you just said happened, and now you watch us run into Q3 in the second half of 2019, and it's just a shotgun approach. And now here we've got, I think, it was mentioned recently on Forbes, 20 plus different countries building digital currencies. We've got all the stuff we talked about around stablecoins. We've got new protocols that are running wild right now. You've got Tron and Steem. Again, everything we've talked about today happened in this short period. Libra could have been that catalyst. And if it doesn't work, there's a little bit of money someone else paid and bullets taken for us as an industry and a community to see ourselves get there.
I want to make one quick comment on that. One of the things I love about this space is it allows for evolution. And I really think that is a critically important part of our technological advancement, even as a species, to get a little philosophical here. Like, we have to be allowed to evolve. And a lot of the systems have stagnated that evolution, too big to fail, all that kind of stuff. And the idea that we can come out, try something, have it break, have it fail. If you go on my Twitter today, you can see I took the quote from Steve Jobs. It was like, here's to the misfits, that famous quote. Yeah. And I inject the section in the middle, which is like, here's to the people that think we can build nonviolent global consensus, people that we can build blockchain technology, DeFi and DACs and DAOs. And then I finished off the quote, and it was like, that's really what we're doing. We're doing something really brand new, and we think we're crazy enough to change the world to do it. And we're allowing ourselves to fail. And that's a good thing. Things are tried, things evolve. And without that kind of evolutionary process of things living, reproducing, and some of them dying, we're not going to grow. So even if, Libra fails, it's like, it's money well spent, Zach. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I think you've already answered this question with that statement, but as the misfits, how can we bring more misfits together? And what more can we all do, not just to bring users or developers to EOS itself, but to bring this community together, to help this community grow?
I think one of the biggest things is just check ourselves for our own biases, our own crypto tribalism, our own kind of like, well, I like this because it's going to make me money. And really think on a broader, like higher up Maslow's hierarchy, get to that self-actualization, self-transcendence, and really recognize like we're doing this because the world needs it. We have to come up with a better solution for a lot of things we're doing in the financial space. And so it's not just about me and my coin and my tribe. It's also about the tribe. Our species, we are a tribe. We're living on this little blue dot, hurtling through space. What can we do to help create a world we all want to live in? And so doing stuff like this, doing AMAs, doing videos, connecting with people that are, reach across the aisle, connect to other, if you're an EOS, connect to Ethereum developers. You're an Ethereum community, connect with EOS developers. And now in this current context of this very week, you're into Tron, connect with Steem. Steem, connect with Tron. This is a really interesting time where we could have two different communities with different perspectives come together and hopefully create something greater than the sum of their parts. So I would say, less caustic, we're better than you, tribalistic attacks, and more just, you're making the world a better place. I am too. Awesome. I celebrate you. I hope you win. Hope we win. Hope we all win.
And with that, we're in our final few minutes, so we got a few lightning round questions for you. What real world examples or use cases are you seeing on EOS or in general around DeFi that have you excited? Maybe 2 or 3 quick use cases.
Oh gosh, honestly, I'm gonna bow out on this one and say I wish I saw more. There's just not enough. I know that's a tough answer. No, that's my honest answer.
All right, yeah. Challenge accepted to the community. Yeah, there you go. All right. Opportunities you see in decentralized applications, right? There's a lot of talk around gaming, gambling, obviously finance. Yeah. What are some opportunity areas you see that people could start building in? That
I think not just supply chain management, but also kind of the, and I'm going again to the NFT event tomorrow, just the actual connecting of physical objects to the digital space in a trustless way. So Vinay Gupta's Materium is really exciting. I've been following that since his early drafts of the white paper. Things like that, where they're trying to solve real world problems connecting to the meat space. So really just anything that makes someone's everyday life, such as, supply chain management, tagging real world items. I think that's really exciting.
And you mentioned your kids are playing some really awesome games. So I'm going to ask you, what are your 3, if you have them, top 3 dApps outside of FIBO?
Let's see.
We already got that one out there. Top 3 dApps.
I obviously I use Steem all the time. It's my home on the internet, home on the blockchain where I blog. So I like different front end interfaces for that. I really you like Steem Monsters, that's a game that I play. I've got a legendary gold card that I think is worth like $600, that I got. There's only 27 of them. I did really enjoy playing EOS Knights. I also put way too much money in Prospectors.io. Really enjoyed that one as well. But, there was just kind of getting those economics right is very challenging. Both of those, unfortunately, the economics probably lost out more than I gained. But so I'm a big fan of blockchain gaming. Unfortunately, I've just been super busy lately, so I don't get a chance to delve into that space as much as I'd like. So at the moment, it's really just been building. I haven't been able to play. So I'll turn that around a little bit to the community. Hit me up on Luke Stokes. If you've got a cool DApp or project or something that you think I should be checking out that I haven't already, chances are I've probably looked at it. Go ahead and, at me. Let me know. Let me know what you think on Twitter or on Steem or Telegram as well.
I love it. Luke, thank you so much. Last shout outs. Do you got anything you want to shout out to the community where they can reach you? And again, we'll put all the links and everything mentioned today in the comment section notes below, and we'll have a blog post that follows up with everything linked. But Luke, 30 seconds, shout it all out, and then I'll wrap us up.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Yeah, you can. My website's lukestokes.info. Like I said, I'm at Luke Stokes on Telegram, on Steemit, or Steem more appropriately, and on Twitter as well. So just at Luke Stokes. You can find me in all those places. And, if you're interested in what I'm working on mostly right now, like I said, FIO, so FIO.foundation, definitely check it out. There's a demo video there, explainer video, the white paper, which explains the problem, and then our roadmap, which is how we're solving that, just making crypto easy to use for everybody. And then as far as just, check out EOS DAC as well, EOS DAC.io. And then I'm working with Brock as well with the EOS Foundation. Hopefully that becomes a thing. We didn't talk about that much on this call, but it's still in conversation space is, how can we serve the larger EOS community? So if you're interested in EOS Foundation conversation, hit me up about that as well. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Luke. And to everybody, we'll sync up with Luke after the call and get his favorite question. Mike from the team will reach out and connect with those who asked and figure out what you want to do with your winnings. And also tune in on March 4th as we host Nate Hinman from Bancor's Head of Growth. So another exciting episode. Luke, again, thank you. Have fun in New York. Enjoy the sunset that you've got in the background there. And everyone check out Vivo along with Equilibrium and have a good day.
Thanks so much, Kyle.